welcome to a show where you will hear about how our liberty is being eroded by the very people that swear an oath to protect it.
Today, the president signed a big new anti-terrorism bill that would expand the government's ability to track down terrorists, but at some cost.
On this show, we will discuss many of the lies that the government that hates us, by the way, we will discuss the lies that the people in positions of power and influence spread every day.
And what is the best way to confuse children? Confuse them about their sexuality, confuse them about their gender, expose them to things that their little brains are not ready for yet. That is how they are confusing children. It is leading to chaos, and Big Daddy government, of course, can be there to pick us all up and take care of us at the end of it.
We will also talk about how current elected leadership at all levels of government has been corrupted by power and control, as well as discuss the types of leadership needed to correct our republic's course.
We the people. Well, it's time to remember that we the people are the government.
Providing assistance for the Ukrainians to defeat the Russians, that's the number one priority for the United States right now.
I am your host, Larry Linton, retired U.S. Navy Command Master Chief and prior Tennessee House of Representatives District 12 candidate, and welcome to the Liberty, Leadership, and Lies podcast. Welcome to this week's show, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want to give a huge shout out to my nephew. He graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point last weekend and has received his commission as a second lieutenant in the United States Army. Well done, young man. Well done. Let's just hope your commander-in-chief doesn't kick off World War III here in the near future. Well, I'm wrapping things up here in Alexandria, Louisiana, and getting ready to travel back to my beloved Tennessee. And more importantly, back to my bride Denise, as well as my loyal, and according to the vet, slightly overweight puppy Harlow. Denise has had Harlow on a diet the past couple of weeks, and my puppy doesn't understand the huge drop-off in treats. She has developed the perfect delivery of side-eye here lately, too. So let's just say there's been a lot of side-eye being delivered in the house since the yearly checkup went down. I'm preparing myself for the actual sad puppy dog eyes, asking for a treat when I get home. A quick update on the invitations to come on this program that I've sent to prominent members of the GOP and to some elected officials. Congresswoman Harshbarger's chief of staff and I are working out her appearance on the show sometime in the month of June. I'll let the audience know on the blog and social media sites exactly when she will come on. Be sure and stay tuned. As for the Sevier County Vice Mayor, Sevier County Republican Party Chairman, and State Representative Dale Carr's response, well, it's the same as last week's. And this week, we're going to talk about the lies that our government and their useful idiots continue to spread. But if we were to cover them all, this would be a 24/7 podcast. Since that is not feasible, we'll just highlight a few of them from the last couple of weeks. We could actually consider this a continuation of last week's show that was titled Scare Tactics, because those scare tactics that are used to coerce the public are just lies. I received some good feedback on last week's show, and I greatly appreciate it. As a reminder, you can comment on the episode directly on Rumble, YouTube, or Spotify. But if you don't listen to the show on those platforms and would like to provide some feedback to me, just send an email to Larry at libertyleadershipandlies.com. Again, that's Larry at libertyleadershipandlies.com. All one word, no hyphens, no punctuation. And like I said, I am really appreciative of any feedback provided. For starters on lies this week, though, let's examine this lie. Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, is a conservative. How many of you fell for or believed that lie? We talked a bit about his fight to become Speaker of the House back in episode 91. McCarthy sure did give up a lot of concessions to become Speaker. Those 20 conservatives that fought to obtain those concessions were pilloried by the legacy media and the communists, not to mention the many trans publicans that were in McCarthy's camp. Well, how does that fight look now that we can use 20/20 hindsight? The lie that Kevin McCarthy is a conservative ties neatly in with another lie, and that one is this. The currently elected members of the Republican Party are doing everything they can to push back on the radical left's agenda in our republic. Well, those lies, the one that McCarthy's a conservative and the GOP is pushing back on the radical communist agenda, have been proven to be lies with the deal to increase the debt ceiling of our country. Another related lie in this whole debt ceiling fight is the one that most Americans believe, that the government racked up this debt and needs to pay for it or there will be catastrophic consequences. The government doesn't own this debt, ladies and gentlemen. You and I own this debt. It is just that the government incurred and is still incurring at a rapid pace this debt in our names. Not only our names, but the names of all our future generations of children. McCarthy and a majority of the GOP in the House agreed to give Biden and the communists a debt ceiling raise by approximately $4 trillion. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard that right. They gave away the farm. They agreed to raise the debt ceiling until January 2025 as well. That means they are going to allow unfettered spending for the remainder of Biden's term. And the limit deadline that is in this bill will kick in for what is looking to be like the beginning of President Trump's second term in office. Now, just why would they agree to do that time frame that is only detrimental to the GOP? Well, you know the why. Because it looks like that despite the cheating that will occur in the 2024 election, Donald Trump will be elected again. The deep state commies and trans-publicans hamstringed his first presidency with hoaxes and impeachments. Now they want to saddle him with the label of the first president to cause the United States to default on its debt. That's just me thinking out loud, though. Engaging in a conspiracy theory, you might say. Well, what has happened to all the other conspiracy theories for the past 3 years? So the first part of McCarthy's debt ceiling deal, if we were to grade it on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being bad and 10 being good for each interested party in the negotiations, the first part of this deal is a 1 for Republicans and a 10 for the communists. It's a negative 10 for the people of this republic. What about this pay-go administrative function in this bill? It's more bureaucratic nonsense that is only used to make this deal seem palatable to us, the people that are on the hook for this debt. The administrative pay-go in this deal is totally worthless. It can be gamed with the government's accounting gimmicks, which they have become quite adept at ever since they gained first cut to our sweat equity with the 16th Amendment. It also grants the OMB director complete waiver authority in Section 265 if, quote, necessary for program delivery, unquote. Just what percentage of time do you think that will be used when spending constraints may be imposed? How about 100% of the time? Because, ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing so well designed to rob us of our sweat equity and then to turn around and waste it on measures only meant to obtain and maintain power and influence for them. Nothing is better designed to do that than the government we the people apathetically let get elected, or sometimes selected. How about the GOP's lie, about how they will dismantle Biden's expansion of the Internal Revenue Service? Well, that's completely laughable. This so-called good deal for America only cuts $1.4 billion of the $80 billion, which they claim is equal to the agency's spend plan. They talk as if it's zeroing out the light on them for the year. It really doesn't, because the $80 billion was a lump sum appropriation. The snakes over at the IRS can still ramp up this year by spending the rest on the same plan. Isn't that just peachy? But it is good for America and McCarthy's and the rest of the trans-publicans' eyes. Well, it is really good for the America they want to create, not the America you and I are living in, where the government has grown fat on the tax dollars they squeeze out of its citizens and has involved itself into every aspect of our lives. An America where even the facade of liberty is wearing away minute by minute. More from this debt ceiling good deal that isn't full of lies, though. Some of the ruling elite have claimed that the bill contains an automatic continuing resolution in the language. That's another lie. What the bill does have in it is a 1% lowering of 2-year caps if a continuing resolution is passed. This debt ceiling deal will actually incentivize omnibus spending bills. Those are the bills that have become all too common with our government lately. Those midnight passed 4,000-page laws that grant the government more and more taxing power and even greater spending power with zero accountability. Sounds like a great deal so far, doesn't it? But wait, there's more. I don't mean to sound like one of those late-night infomercial guys, but that is what it is like when talking about these spending bills our government so graciously passes to avert catastrophe for the citizens of this nature. There is a never-ending more when it comes to our government's ability to devise ways to keep the people in perpetual debt bondage, along with keeping themselves in elected office and their hands on the reins of the ability to tax and spend us to death. But I'll save the more for later, as real conservatives pick apart this bill that GOP leadership, hand in hands with the communists, lied to the American people about. Keep this in mind, though. Why did the communists in Congress whip this deal so hard? And whip means getting their party members to vote for it. The commies whipped this bill. Well, it was because they get about $637 billion in non-defense, non-VA healthcare money to fund the bureaucracy, the deep state. The GOP's stated goal was to cut the bureaucracy, and this deal did the opposite. It has been a long time since I said this on the show, ladies and gentlemen, but it bears repeating at this time. A time when the Republican Party had the chance to obtain significant cuts to the size and scope of a federal government, to rein in the spending that only serves to keep us all in debt. And this phrase is so true because it applies to a majority of the people in elected office in Washington, D.C. Our government hates us. They only see us as a financial means to their never-ending quest to obtain and maintain power. Keep watching as this plays out, folks. But let's move on to some other lies. Listening to some other shows and other podcasts and reading other news sites, there is a big lie that has been out there in plain sight for a few years now. Not a lot of people have caught on to it, though. It has been discussed somewhat in conservative circles for a while now, but mostly by Dan Bongino and his sources. But I can bring a bit of real-world experience and perspective to this as well. This goes back to the United States House Select Committee on Benghazi hearings that began in 2014. 2 years after the attack that claimed the lives of 4 Americans in Libya. It was during those hearings that it was discovered that then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was using a non-government private email server located at her residence in New York, and she was using it to conduct official business. We've all heard ad nauseum about that issue and how former FBI Director James Comey completely exonerated her from wrongdoing, despite the reasons he gave for doing so not meeting the elements of the law. For years now, though, it has been called Clinton's email scandal. While it is true that it was Hildebeest's private email server that is at the crux of the situation, there is a bit that has been hidden from the public about the biggest component of the scandal. For a bit of background, while I was on active duty, I often dealt with unclassified and classified email. For unclassified routine email, it came through what was called NIPRNet. For the classified emails, only up to the classification level of secret, as well as to access to information on classified servers, well, we use a system called SIPRNet. There's an interesting thing about SIPRNet emails, though, that is not widely known. In order for somebody with an email address not on the SIPRNet, meaning on an unclassified email server, which is anything outside of a .gov or .mil or .any government agency server, in order to receive emails from somebody with an email domain name of, let's say, ClintonEmail.com, well, the network security personnel responsible for the classified side would have to do what is called whitelist emails from that domain to be accepted on the classified email device. be it a desktop, laptop, or in the case we are talking about, a BlackBerry. We all know that Hillary Clinton, during her time as Secretary of State, used her personal email domain server to conduct business, both classified and unclassified. One of the many recipients of her emails, though, was none other than President Barack Obama. He knew she was doing this. He sent her emails at that email address. He received emails from her from that email address. The people that run the secure network for presidential emails is an organization called the White House Communications Agency, or WACA. Now, just how would WACA know to whitelist Hillary Clinton's unclassified non-government email address so she could send the president emails? I'm quite sure there are a whole host of spoof or spam emails that are transmitted to the president's email address on an hourly basis in this country. So how would WACA know which ones to whitelist and which ones to blacklist? Well, the president himself had to instruct WACA to put a particular email address on the whitelist for that to happen. I have experience with how that happens, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody gets put on a classified email whitelist without specific instructions from the recipient. Nobody. So while we all think that the email scandal that came out during the Benghazi hearings and exonerated by the duplicitous former FBI Director James Comey is solely related to Hillary Clinton, we need to think again. Comey and Clinton, as well as the members of Congress that raised heck about the private email server, never mentioned Obama at all in the scandal. That's on purpose. The ruling elite needed the focus to stay on Clinton, even under the guise of the FBI investigating the scandal as it related to, and only related to, Hillary Clinton. They could not let it get out and tarnish the anointed one's image, the anointed one being Barack Obama. And the they, that is the entirety of the U.S. government. Obama's legacy cannot be tainted in any way, shape, or form, because it allows him to maintain influence over the entire system. It also allows for the potential political aspirations of Michelle Obama. Rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, Hillary was part of the email scandal she was at the center of, but Barack Hussein Obama is a bigger part of it. That is why you and I were never informed about his participation in the scandal. Read the words that James Comey used when he let Hillary off the hook in front of a national televised audience. They are almost exactly, word for word, the same ones that President Obama used when explaining away Hillary's dirty deeds. And the rest of the government and the media went along with it. Legacy media has plenty of talking heads with prior government experience in the use of classified emails and whitelisting email addresses, and none of them have mentioned Obama as being part of this scandal as well. That is why Obama went along with Clinton's plan to falsely accuse Trump of colluding with the Russians to steal the 2016 election. We know that now because the Durham reports that Obama, along with Dementia Joe, and several other deep state players, they were all in the same room when Hillary discussed this plan. Obama and his lackeys need to ensure the focus was either shifted to Trump or that it stayed on Hillary. Everybody, and I mean everybody, in the executive, judicial, and legislative branches of government, they all knew about Obama's involvement and have chosen to remain silent. While you all may say that this is water under the bridge and that we have to move on from it, keep this in mind. They got away with it in 2016. They relentlessly used the power of the federal government to persecute and hamstring Trump for his entire presidency. They used it as a backdrop to 2 impeachments, along with the continuing abuse to keep the one person out of office that has the receipts for all of their BS and will work to put a stop to it. These same government agencies use scare tactics to fundamentally alter the way elections are conducted in our country. Again, to keep the one person out of office that will put an end or work to put an end to the deep state. So yes, it happened a few years ago, but we cannot let their lies go unchecked any longer. If the communists can change the statute of limitations to go after their political opponents, conservatives must do the same thing. Otherwise, the water under the bridge crowd, they are just continuing the lies that only serve to erode our liberty. If any of you have any questions about this topic, I would be more than happy to answer them. It's not bragging when I tell you that I have 30 years worth of experience working with classified materials. I tell you that so that you can know that I have a bit more bona fides when discussing classified information handling than your average nighttime cable news host that has been lying to you for decades now. Enough of that for this week, though. Hat tip to Dan Bongino, though, for first covering that aspect of the Clinton and Obama email scandal. Maybe if we can get some true conservatives into elected office, we can put a small dent in the volume of lies our government tells us and begin to hold them accountable for it. I'd like to now cover a few things that have entered into the public domain that are meant to distract you or get you to think differently about critical gender theory. What is that, you might say? Well, just like critical race theory, critical gender theory are lies told to an unsuspecting populace in order to advance theories meant to erode thousands of years of human history, as well as to remove the creator of the heavens and earth from our lives. You see, the proponents of these theories want to erase our creator and set up man as God. They work extremely hard to erase the moral law from our hearts that was put there when we were formed in the womb. Well, it cannot be erased completely, but the enemy is very creative and persistent in creating enough confusion to cause doubt, which can lead to disbelief, as we've discussed before. While scrolling through the internet, once again, I do this so you don't have to, and I'm going to start to try to include these articles that I find in my monthly newsletter so you can track the machinations as well. So you can subscribe to the newsletter by just sending in to me an email and asking to subscribe, and I'll put you on the list. Anyway, scrolling through the news stories, I see a headline that catches my eye. It is this, quote, "Did prehistoric Europe have a non-binary view of gender?" Unquote. It was an article in the Jerusalem Post here recently, and the article opens with this statement, quote, "Humans in prehistoric Central Europe may have viewed gender through a non-binary lens, although several sources of error and bias make it difficult to understand to what extent, according to a new study published last week," unquote. Well, key words buried in the opener are may have viewed and several sources of error and bias. This is just one of many articles that are meant to lend some sort of scholarly credibility to the current trend of mental illness running rampant through our society today. The transgender movement is at the center of the critical gender theory movement. It is meant to confuse the most vulnerable among us, children. Human beings without fully developed brains are the prey in this movement. It is part of the indoctrination process that is occurring on a daily basis in government schools and enabled by those parents that are suffering from a condition that I gleaned from somebody on Twitter this past week. It's a play on the mental condition called Munchausen syndrome by proxy, or factitious disorder imposed by another, which is a mental health disorder in which a caregiver, most often a mother, routinely makes up fake symptoms or causes real symptoms in a child or adult victim to make it appear that the victim has a true physical or mental health issue. These actions are typically a result of a maladaptive disorder or excessive attention seeking by the caregiver. In addition to being a disorder, Munchausen syndrome by proxy is also considered a very serious form of child abuse. The term that can be applied to these parents that are enabling this can be called Transhausen by proxy. It was in a tweet as it related to the boycott by conservatives. The tweet stated this, quote, "Here is why the Target boycott is working. Their Pride merchandise heavily focuses on gender and sex identity and is marketed for young children and preteens, the most vulnerable. Sane adults who aren't suffering from Transhausen by proxy Know that projecting trans identities onto impressionable kids is immoral and wrong, unquote. In the opening to this show, I play a clip from a news broadcast that calls this out. And here's another hat tip to Dan Bongino as he accurately calls out this trans housing by proxy movement quite correctly when he states, "You can't have communism without the kids." This movement is all about confusing children and creating mental illness and doubt in children, and telling them that their only source for comfort is Big Daddy government coming in to solve all of their problems. Ladies and gentlemen, save your children. Our government school system is beyond repair, I believe. They have indoctrinated generations of children, and it's finally starting to stick, where family and faith no longer matter in their lives. They don't consider that they are fearfully and wonderfully made by a creator that loves them. And this will only get worse as time goes on, as evidenced by the recent capitulation of the Republican Party in the debt ceiling fight. Those members of Congress, both communists and trans-publicans, only have their best interests at heart. They will spin lie after lie after lie, all meant to obtain and maintain power. They have figured out that the quickest way to do this is by completely indoctrinating and confusing the children of this nation. Remember, you cannot have communism without the kids. The commies have learned that lesson over the past few generations, and they have the pedal to the metal in creating a godless society, a society without liberty, one where only the government has the solutions, a government that needs to completely drain you of your sweat equity to implement those solutions. Now, there's plenty more I wanted to get to this week, but we've run out of time. Look to the newsletter and the blog as I discuss more lies about the southern border and the actions so-called Republican governors are taking these actions to boost their image, but not stem the tide of illegal immigrants. We'll also talk about the continuing lies about the transgender Covenant School mass shooters manifesto, lies about Fourth Amendment violations by the federal government. Lies upon lies upon lies. That's it for this week, ladies and gentlemen, and I truly hope you enjoyed the show. Once again, I ask that you please share the show with everyone in your contacts list as well as on your social media pages. In closing, we have this week's wisdom from God's Word, and today it comes to us from Psalms 31:18. Let the lying lips be mute, which speak insolently against the righteous in pride and contempt. There are many ways to let the lying lips be mute. The most effective way is to just quit paying attention to them. Or when the government and allies are using their lying lips and are being successful in convincing the people that are in your sphere of influence, confront those lies with facts and logic. Government and the legacy media have been caught in so many lies lately, the evidence is readily available for you to confront them with. One of the very few good things about the internet is that the evidence is there for you to find. It's there forever. Their pride in the lies they spread and in their contempt for the people of this country is completely evident. All you have to do is spend a little bit of your time and find the truth so that you can confront those lies. It will be time well spent if you can uncover the eyes of family members, friends, neighbors, and co-workers that have been blinded by the lies that are spread every day. It will take courage as well. Things may get uncomfortable for you, but you won't be doing this for just yourself. You will be doing this for all of your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren, for all future generations of Americans. Thank you all for listening this week, and I pray that you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Until next week, stand in the arena with me. Reveille, it's time to wake up.